Hey, this is Matt once again with the Bats Another video. And this is a paid request for Adam. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. I do have a CashApp as well. People have asked about that. Links are down below in the info box, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. And for those who sent them, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And this time, Adam wanted me to look into Death Wish 5, The Face of Death from 1994. So thank you, man. I appreciate it and hope we do a decent enough job. And thank you for those out there who sent them in. And I'll do what I can. But Death Wish 5. Now, before I start, my quick thoughts on the Death Wish films in general. And even Charles Bronson. I didn't go with Charles Bronson like other people did. The only one I saw when I was a kid was Death Wish 3, which I love. Still my favorite Bronson film. Still my favorite Death Wish film. But I would grow up with Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren, Kurt Russell, Chuck Norris, among other stuff. Among other action heroes. Even Clint Eastwood I watched a bit more as a kid. But Bronson I would find later on, and I liked him. Like those other people I mentioned, I like more than Bronson, but I do like Bronson because he was a real tough guy who went through a lot of stuff in his life, especially as a kid. You bought that tough grit presence of his that worked well and appropriate for an action film, and he had a fairly successful career doing those type of movies, especially with Cannon films. Now, I've seen more of his movies throughout the years, and I enjoy The Evil That Men Do. I enjoy 10 to Midnight, Murphy's Law, a few others. After this, because this is the last theatrical film he did, he would do a few TV movies. He did The Sea Wolf, I think it's called, with Christopher Reeve and Mark Senior. That was a TV movie. He did A Family of Cop movies. He might have done a few other TV stuff, and then he passed away, I think around 2003 or so, like quite a while ago actually, so may he rest in peace. And this is a time when Cannon Films was pretty much done. Cannon Films and Millennium Golan, Yorm Globus, they kind of split. Cannon Films was done like dinner. Dead in the water. So Millennium Golan had this group here and trying to come up with, it was like 21st Century Studios. It was something called like that where they wanted their own films. And I know Millennium Golan had the Death Wish property. And Charles Bronson at this point, he didn't want to do anymore because it's like, you know, how many Death Wish films can we do? Because you think about it, with Death Wish, that plot, you can only go so far. Because it's about a vigilante. He's going to be killing because someone he knows died. Or was raped and then died. How many more can that be done? So it's okay, his wife is gone. His daughter is gone. His buddy gets beaten up and the neighbor is in trouble. This girlfriend he has, her daughter OD'd and she's dead, and then that's one thing that bothers me about Death Wish 4. I like the film, but the guy's like, I warned you, I'll kill her, and he keeps walking. He doesn't even like try to do anything else. Yeah, granted, maybe no matter what he did, he would have killed her, the bad guy I mean, but he didn't do anything, just still kept walking, and then she died. I'm like, come on, dude, like you could have tried something. If you had listened, I don't know. I'm not saying he... I tell you, that just bothers me a bit, but I still like Death Wish 4. But, I mean, like I said, there's only so much you could do with a Death Wish film. And maybe that's the point of... When I first saw this, I was kind of blasé about it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Because I don't like the first Death Wish. I don't hate the film. I don't think it's an awful film. It's just a film that doesn't really do anything for me. I'm sure of its time, it did a lot more that I could respect. in terms of being a vigilante film and taking the story serious and not being as over the top, not being as cannon fueled as the later films were. But I like that cannon fuel. I like cannon films. I appreciate it. I love cannon movies. From Invasion USA to American Ninja 1 and 2 to Over the Top with Stallone. Like, I love a lot of those films, so I actually prefer that. And even films of that era, like Dirty Harry, I would say I prefer over Death Wish. But I don't hate that film. Like I said, I'm not big on Death Wish 1. I could watch it, but that's it. I could watch it. I don't think it's horrible. Death Wish 2 I like. I think it has some good lines. You believe in Jesus? You're going to meet him soon. I like some of the kills, like shooting Lawrence Fishburne through the boombox. I like the music, which the music you would hear Mr. Page himself. That music would be used in Death Wish 3. Was it Jimmy Page? I'm always bad with names. I think it was Jimmy Page. But yeah, I love that music. I love the overtopness of... I love how over the top Death Wish 3 is. Yeah, Jimmy Page. And that film's a lot of fun. Death Wish 4 is entertaining as well. Has a decent amount of action. I like the idea of him kind of playing both sides, which you would see in Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis and hell, Yojimbo back in the day. I didn't mind that idea. When I saw this, it just felt like a cheaper movie when I first saw this. It felt like a cheaper film. It didn't feel it had as much action as the previous Death Wish movies, at least Death Wish 3 and 4. Those felt like it had more action, more spectacle, and this one just felt a bit more bared down. Although it says Death Wish 5 and 4 had the same budget, $5 million, but this one just felt cheaper. It did go into theaters. Like I said, it's the last film Bronson did that was in theaters, but I know originally this guy who's the director, he was not the original director for this. Menem Golan wanted to do it, but he was busy trying to do other stuff with that now new company. Then he wanted Steve Carver, which he did Lone Wolf McQuay with Chuck Norris and Eye for an Eye with Chuck Norris. I think he probably could have maybe developed a bit more of an action. But maybe at that point, Menem Golan didn't want to pay that much money for whatever the script had. Maybe his script had more action, and then Menem Golan's like, no, cut down the budget. Maybe that's why Steve Carver was gone. Maybe. But then they got this guy, which I don't know what this guy... It looked like he just directed dramas. But when I first saw this, I'm like, man, this isn't as cool as Death Wish 3 or even Death Wish 4. And I know it didn't go straight to video, but it felt like a straight to video film. Watch it again, I would say this. I thought it was okay. More so because of the second half of the film. Because the first half, it goes by the routine of, here's Charles Bronson, he's with this new lady, a girlfriend, played by Lesley-Anne Down. Sooner or later, we got the bad guys, they're going to kill the girl, or kill someone he loves, and Bronson's going to get revenge. Kind of know where he's going. Like I said, with Death Wish, you kind of pigeonhole yourself where there's not a whole lot you could do without going, why would he do that? Or why would he do this? So it's always going to be someone he knows gets killed or hurt, and he's going to kill the motherfuckers. Just what else you don't have Paul Kersey do? But the plot of the film, now that I'm 10 minutes in, like his girlfriend is Lesley-Anne Down. She's a fashion designer. But her ex-husband is Michael Parks. He's the reason why I can watch this film. Like, I rather liked watching Michael Parks again. Maybe at the time I didn't know who Michael Parks was, and I didn't really appreciate what he was doing, but Almost any scene he's in, Michael Parks had a little twinkle in his eye as the villain, as Tommy O'Shea. Like, he says something, and the other guy goes, "What do you say?" "Oh, I don't know. Plus, I'm starting to mumble like you, so I couldn't hear what I said." Or, "You know, you need to get the wax out of your ears. Maybe you need to do this." Or, "Hey, you, say something. Come on. Stutter. Fumble your words. Say something." Or there's a bit where one of their men has died because their food was poisoned. So, many scenes later, the girlfriend comes down to give Michael Parks' food, and it's the same type of food. He's like, "Really? Look, are you that stupid, huh? Huh? You don't remember what happened?" And he's like throwing the food back to her and calling her names and shit. Like, Michael Parks was a lot of... Michael Parks, of course, was the Texas Ranger at the beginning of From Dusk Till Dawn. He was in films, Kevin Smith films like Red State and Tusk. He was in Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2 as different characters. Sadly, he's no longer with us, but Michael Parks, great actor. When did he pass away? 2017, so yeah. And then Charles Bronson passed away 2003. But Michael Parks definitely made the role work for him. I liked how brutal the film was. I forgot about how brutal it could be. Like, there's this fat guy who's working with the factory part of Lesley-Anne Down's business. And, of course, Michael Parks is using this to launder money. And he's like, "Well, how come we're not getting more?" The guy has an excuse. But Michael Parks is like, "You know what?" And he's like making fun of the guy's weight, making fun of, "Man, he got all this stuff to you, huh?" So they push him down, and they have this saw, and they get to his side. Now, you don't see, like, gory Friday the 13th style gore, but just the idea, and you see the guy's bleeding. I'm like, okay, that's a bit of, rougher bit of brutal business there. Have a little bit of blood there. And then throughout there's some, gun squibs. And I'll say this, the death scenes at least are creative. Some people may feel them too silly or too goofy, but I appreciate the creativity. Like I said, I would say the second half is what warmed me up to the movie. So like I said, the first half, it's you're introducing, the characters. For some reason, Paul Kersey is in the witness protection program. And he knows the DA, played by Saul Rubinek. Which I like that actor. I've seen him in quite a few other films. I think he was in Unforgiven, True Romance. I've seen him from time to time in a movie. I thought he was a good actor. But I'm saying, when the hell did Paul Kersey get... I guess in between films. I mean, to be fair, it's been a few years between Death Wish 4 and 5, so... Yeah, I guess during that time... How did that work out, though, that he got in the witness protection? Almost want to know that story, that movie. But, long story short, Lesley-Anne Down has a daughter, and her father is Michael Parks. She knows he's with the mafia, he's up to no good. Charles Bronson says, "You need to testify." Gets in touch with the DA. "Hey, come testify, we'll take care of it." But there's someone who's on the take in the DA's vicinity. One that leads to another. At first, the bad guys warn Lesley-Anne Down by Robert Joy, who was in Land of the Dead and other movies, in drag, going to the bathroom, smashing the shit out of her at the bathroom mirror, which was a bit brutal, and warning her. She's in the hospital. By the time she gets back, that person with the DA who's on the take tells the bad guys again, well, actually she is going to testify. They go, and ultimately she ends up dying. And then the second half is Charles Bronson getting revenge. Now, like I said, there's some stuff in this that don't work. I'll talk about those first. I thought the showdown between Bronson and Michael Parks could have been a bit more, whether it be a war of words or a bit more physical. I thought the way that confrontation happened between those two actors, it felt like it ended a bit too quick. But again, Bronson is so old at this point, I guess, he couldn't do a whole lot physically. It just didn't feel like Bronson was in any danger or any trouble when he's with Michael Parks. So I guess I wish a little bit more of that. The music I'm not a fan of. It's definitely no Jimmy Page. Just like the opening and ending credits sound like something from The Godfather. Maybe because the mafia's involved, I don't know. And then, like, throughout it, the music just felt cheaper. Even compared with the fourth film, it just, something about the music took me out of it. I didn't really care for the score. Like I said, the first half, understandably so, I did why, because it's, like I said, there's what more can you do with the Paul Kersey Death Wish movie, but it just felt kind of trope typical in the first half. And for some reason, they added this part with this cop, Kenneth Welsh, who has his Asian partner, Detective Janice. And I thought Kenneth Walsh was going to be a bigger part of the story, but it's like he's brought up a second time. He's in like 3 scenes, it feels like. It just feels like all of his scenes could have just been Saul Rubinet's character, even more of the DA being involved. And it felt like you didn't really need this guy in there to begin with. Again, when he appears, he only appears like 3 scenes and that's it. And even the way he shows up at the end just feels so out of the blue, and it's like, damn, you didn't really need him in there. I don't know, just he kind of shows up and goes, "This is who I am." Then, at one point, they try to get the bad guy because him and the Asian partner bugged the fat guy from earlier, put a bug on him. They find out, they kill the guy. Good stunt work. They hit him with a car and the guy flies back through the window. And then even the Asian female cop tries to shoot the bad guys, but the car does a turn, which makes her flip. Did good stunt from the person. Real practical stunt. Then later she dies. And then Bronson's like, well, how many years have you been doing this? 14, 16 years? It's a long time to fail. Which I like that line. It's true. I was surprised the guy didn't try to punch Paul Kersey. Then he shows up at the very, very end just to get wounded for his stupidity, and then Bronson saves him. So, like I said, it felt like all those scenes could have been Saul Rubinek and have him involved. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But the positives. Number one, yeah, Bronson's getting up there with age, but it's still nice to see him in there. He still has that presence, that look to him that brings a lot without saying a whole lot. So, I mean, it's hard to go wrong with Charles Bronson being the lead of your movie. Like I said, it does have some brutality, not gore, but like some of the kills later on. And that gets into the other thing, the kills, the spoilers. He puts like cyanide in cannoli for one of the bad guys in a restaurant. The guy chokes to death and other stuff. The assassin, Robert Joy, Charles Bronson gets a remote-controlled soccer ball, and the guy picks it up. And throughout the movie, there's talk of like the guy has a dandruff problem. So Charles Bronson goes, "Hey, I'm going to take care of your dandruff problem. I'm going to take care of your dandruff problem for you." No! And then blows up the soccer ball in the guy's face. And then you see an actual stuntman on fire, his head and chest on fire, and crumbles to the ground. I'm like, okay, kind of hard to hate a movie that does that. There's this one guy during the finale who Charles Bronson, I forget if he wounded him, shot at him. The guy falls into this garment industrial shredder, and you see little bits of like the chunks of meat coming down. You see it briefly, and then filling up this bag, and just seeing enough little blood there, and the sound effects, and how it's filling up this bag definitely gives you a brutal image. Even at the end, like he pushes Michael Parks into pretty much acid. He comes up, he's screaming, ah. I don't know if there was more gore and they had to cut it out. But you see like a little bit of Michael Parks, a little bit of his face, a little bit melted, and he falls back into it. So I do appreciate the kills. Squibs, actually using squibs is nice. We found out who the informant, the turncoat is. It's this other guy working for the DA, played by Miguel Sandoval, which I recognize this guy. I'm like, this guy looks familiar. Remember in Jurassic Park at the beginning, the amber mine, and he's holding the amber with the mosquito in it? That's that guy. The guy holding the amber in Jurassic Park. I'm like, oh, I knew I recognized him, so it's cool to catch familiar people like that. Oh, that's who it is. So yeah, Michael Parks is fun. It stars Bronson. It's hard to beat that, at least to me. The kills in the second half are a bit fun. When it really gets going, it becomes entertaining. Again, it's still not a big budget movie. I mean, the fourth film, he's got like a machine gun with a grenade launcher. And the third film, an entire block of New York gets shot the hell up. So you tell things have gone definitely down into the budget era of the third act. They're kind of in this fashion factory where I think Bronson has to shoot like 3 people. During the squibs, one guy just fall back and electrocuted. Decent bit of slow-mo. But it's definitely pared down quite a bit compared to the previous film. So I think that was my disappointment first time watching it. Going, yeah, this feels a lot cheaper. Now, I don't see myself watching this film that many times in the future. But if someone say, hey, let's go watch this, I'll be okay. There's a lot of worse times to spend your life. It's 90 minutes long. Yeah, Michael Parks in the second half having some pretty creative kills and little decent bits of brutality. Kind of appreciate that more watching it today. With a real man starring at Charles Bronson. There you go, real man. 10 testicles. But yeah, the film came out and I watched Fabio's video. I know the Italian Seven Fabio, he said the same thing. This used to be his least favorite. Then you watch it again and he's like, I could watch it. Same with me. So I agree with him. He mentioned there was some kind of earthquake that happened when this film came out in theaters. Because it didn't come out in a whole lot of theaters, like LA or something. And then that's when the earthquake, so kind of hampered things. But I didn't get much of a showcase in theaters. I think this is kind of the final straw between Charles Bronson and Menem Golan because they never worked together again. I mean, from what I read, apparently even during the making of this film, the only way Bronson and Menem Golan would talk to each other is if the director, actually I should say his name, once get up here, Allan A. Goldstein, he had to go in between. And like this guy, I think, he wasn't the right director, honestly. Just like I said, he did stuff, let's see, Chain Dance, Cold Front, which is like more drama or thrillers and stuff. Like Chain Dance, that's a drama where about two disabled people, Brad Dourif and Michael Ironside, which I remember not being a bad film, but later on did 2001 A Space Travesty with Leslie Nielsen. And one of those Sci-Fi Channel films, Snake Man, aka The Snake Teen. Guys, I just, with Steve Carver, who did Lone Wolf McQuade, you probably maybe could have got a bit more oomph to your movie, at least in the first half. I think if the first half had a little bit more excitement going on, and if the music, I would have preferred them just using Jimmy Page's music again, honestly. But yeah, as is, I liked it for what it is. I don't hate the film like I used to. Because I used to say, oh, it's a piece of shit. I mean, no, it's not a piece of shit. It's just very rudimentary and rote in the first half, other than Michael Parks. And then the second half it picks up and you get some fun out of it. But it's nothing crazy in terms of car chases or big explosive set pieces, except that soccer ball. That's easily my favorite scene in the movie, is that soccer ball. But, yeah. Other than that, it's okay. I thought it was okay. You do a lot worse. You do better, but you do a lot worse. So, take that for you will. Thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye for now.